And welcome back to the program. You're tuning into Our Town, and now we have a different set of interviewees joining us in studio. I'd like to introduce Deidre Diome and Garahio Karat. They are both current members of the ad hoc committee of the Kahnawake Combined School Committee that have been appointed, but you guys are also volunteers. Just explain your role and what is the role of this committee?
Well, we were born last week at the Wednesday night community meeting. What people ended up realizing is they were not happy, and people are not looking at accepting the current situation where the Mohawk Council has taken over the Kahnawake education system and implemented the Board of Trustees. So everybody realized, well, we know what we don't want, but what are we going to do to fix it? And what we found was that we had to mobilize as community members. Mm-hmm. So the Combined School Committee under the Constitution have the right to appoint an ad hoc committee, and they appointed myself, Garahio, Marie Daibo, Tawana Miller, and Lynn Bova to a one-week mandate to begin to look at public relations, fundraising, and beginning to look at the Constitution. Okay. So it's a lot. What we ended up realizing in our first meeting was when we went to deliver the notices, we had volunteers who were just showing up. We had, because a lot of people, even though they're not on the committee, want to be involved, they want to help. So we had grandmothers and young people. We had different people who just keep calling and sending emails and saying, can I help? What can I do? And what became apparent is how much work we have ahead of us right now, and that we need to be sure that we're well organized. So we've had several meetings. Since last Thursday, I believe we've had at least, I've been in at least 7 meetings. And we have made progress. And at this point, at tonight's meeting, our mandate expires tonight at tonight's people's meeting. And what we've done as in working hand in hand with the Combined Schools Committee is the school committee with the ad hoc members are going to present to the parents the option to expand the subcommittees. So as of tonight, we will give it to the parents and the school committee to develop. We'd also like to expand into mediation, arbitration, legal exploration, to look at our legal rights, with the school committee's rights and the parents' legal rights in this situation. We feel that we need a full-time public relations and communications committee. We feel that we need a committee who's going to address Constitution. And our third committee, the last committee, is that we're going to follow up on the June 18th meeting that someone needs to be hired to complete what the parents had asked at that meeting, which was to investigate the process that Donna Lahash had been fired in a neutral way to collect information from everybody. And we're doing that because we believe in fairness for everybody. We believe that the parents who had concerns about Donna's firing and the parents who did not have concerns, that they all have a right to a voice, and that their concerns have to be everybody's concerns, everybody's voice is valid. But that's our job as the parents, as the Combined Schools Committee, to address the issues within our house. And something that you know, people have to understand, democracy isn't always perfect. It isn't always pretty, and it doesn't always meet all the needs all the time, because democracy, like people, is imperfect. Right. So our way, you know, we are prepared to address all of the issues and hear all of the concerns and respect everybody. And at this point, I feel that for me, the way that the Mohawk Council has come in a very dictatorial, very paternalistic, we hear one side, we've made our decision, and be high-handed and come down and crush the people and hurt the people and divide the people is not good. So I really hope that when the Mohawk Council see your piece today, that more than anything, they begin to realize that Kahnawake is we are evolving as a community and growing. And maybe that kind of style of governance was effective in the past. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, I think we are progressive enough that we have to begin to listen to each other more, and we can't just go in and do what we want all the time.
You know, I have to ask you, of course, you're obviously involved because some of these issues have been out there in the community, and you've been pretty vocal either on Facebook or at the community meetings, and so have you, Garihio. But how do you know that the Mohawk Council acted in a paternalistic manner, or that they are one-sided in this issue? How are you sure about that?
I made this analogy. I'm a mother, something I hope that people listening to this can relate to. And a government in a lot of ways is there to guide a family the way a mother is there to guide a family, to lead the right direction. If you had two children who you love, and they come to you with a situation with a conflict, mm-hmm. As a mother, you look at them and you're fair to both of them. You listen to both of them. You find ways to build the relationship, to heal their anger, and to make things right in your family. Now, for me, that's how we need to be looking at things now, that way. That's a very matriarchal, I think, approach, mm-hmm. where it's not you taking control of the situation, it's you empowering the two sides to resolve their issue. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I feel that they haven't done that is because, they have come in and they have silenced the voice of the school committee. And the thing is, they say things, but their actions are the opposite. They say, we haven't taken the voice from the people, but yet they tell the school committee, you need to be quiet and step back. You're contradicting yourself. Mm-hmm. The school committee never even saw the complaints or were even aware of the complaints that the Mohawk Council had. Mm-hmm. That's not listening to two sides.
Well, from what I understand too, the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake didn't have any concrete complaints, and what I mean is formal, that were submitted to them prior to them making this decision.
Well, people are talking a lot about how the constitutional issues need to be fixed here. Mm-hmm. But I think if you look at just basic, good policy, if you look at, I think if the Constitution had been followed and parents had gone through the in-school committee, maybe less problems would have happened. If complaints policies within the Mohawk Council and the Kahnawake Combined Schools Committee had been followed, we'd have less problems. As of right now, to my understanding, on the Donna Lahash firing, not one single written complaint was issued to the Combined Schools Committee. Everybody was creating their own little separate meetings, and people were not following the Constitution. It was very one-sided. But, I keep hearing, and it gives me hope. I hear that there are members of the Mohawk Council who are now second-guessing and now saying, maybe we should have done more research before taking these actions. Mm-hmm. And I would have to say that my door, I know the door of the ad hoc and the door of the Combined Schools Committee is open to find solutions. And if people, even if they're administrators, mm-hmm. if the administrators are now second-guessing themselves and saying, I'm not quite sure, maybe I jumped into this too quickly or I wasn't thinking, I think it's okay to make mistakes, and the greatest leaders, the greatest people with the most strength can admit when they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. And I would really hope, and I would invite all of these people to come to one of our meetings, to call us. And
what about the possibility of the current ad hoc committee and the board of trustees working together? Because obviously the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake said, well, this could be a possibility.
Well, I think the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake would love that scenario because they maintain authority of the ad hoc committee and the situation. I think at this point it's too late for that. That's not going to work. And in speaking to the parents, they are very adamant that no one is willing to work with the Mohawk Council appointed Board of Trustees. But what people have said repeatedly is they will work with the administrators, the staff, the parents who have concerns, and if a neutral third party could be brought into the picture, you know, a mediator, an arbitrator, to help sort out the situation, then that would be the ideal situation. But the Mohawk Council has to understand very clearly that we're not willing to accept what they've done by taking over the Kahnawake Education Center. And what often happens in Kahnawake is the Mohawk Council takes over something and then they perform a consultation, which they control, and they control the questions and they control the parameters, and they can even control, as we saw with the membership consultation of 2 years that the Rice sisters did, that they can even control the outcome. So the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake, in that position as the government in what they've done, doesn't have a track record of being neutral or unbiased. So I think that that's part of, you know, part of maybe healing that kind of perception or that kind of feeling in the community is that they have to begin to do things differently, and maybe they need to rescind what they have done to the school committee, which is very hurtful. And for me, the situation, it's like, you know, we've been in meetings where we've had people crying because they feel so powerless. And it feels like an internal oppression where your own people are silencing you and are taking away your power. And it's very hurtful. It's very hard for people to accept that. So I think the Mohawk Council needs to rethink how they do things. And part of stepping back is to say, how can I go back to being that kind of leader in a family who have two sides, and really you have to love both children. You can't.
But you know what? I mean, I do agree with some of the things that you're saying, obviously. I understand where you're coming from. But my other question is, and you know, I'm just going to put this out there and then maybe we can talk about it, and we do have to go to a commercial break, but where, in terms of the Mohawk Council and their recent decision, they say that they did perform some sort of investigation before the decision was made to suspend. But also based on the fact that where were those concerned parents supposed to go when the combined school committee has no boss?
This leads to, I'm sorry, but it leads right back to the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake. The Mohawk Council of Kahnawake was one of the first government structures in place in Kahnawake. They themselves have no constitution, have no board functioning policy. And if you have a problem with what happens in the Mohawk Council of Kahnawake or within the community of Kahnawake, they were the first to set the template that once you get to the top, to that board table, that's where your accountability ends. So every organization in Kahnawake that came after them has followed the same constitution, where the board is the final authority. So I think if the board is going to point fingers at the Kahnawake Education Center and say, well, if the board makes a mistake, then what do people have to go back on? Well, now they can see so clearly those poor parents have no recourse, but yet they as a government have the same policy. So for me, and that is one of the constitutional amendments that I put on the table first. It was actually put on this week, that the Kahnawake education system could be the leader, the democratic leader, to say, maybe we should look at some type of ombudsman office, some type of arbitration process, some type of neutral party.
Be a community internal affairs.
Yes, but if, I mean, the Mohawk Council cannot be the organization to point fingers at the education center and say, look at you, when I look back and say, look in the mirror.
Okay. With that thought, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. Don't go away. There's more to come here on Our Town. Stay tuned. And welcome back to Our Town. You're tuning in to a special program today on the Kahnawake education system. This is a very touchy subject, if you will. Right now we have in studio members of the ad hoc committee that were appointed through the Kahnawake Combined School Committee. Now, Garahio, you're currently serving on this committee, but just as a community member, a father, and someone who's also served with the Combined School Committee previously when there was, you were also appointed to the terms of reference, from what I understand. Just give me an overhaul in terms of where do you stand and what do you think about this issue?
Okay, originally I started going to the meetings because I heard about everything that was going on with the letting go of the director of education. And I decided to go sit in a meeting. This was the first one they were actually announcing. There was a lot of parents there. It was very heated, lots of yelling, lots of emotions going on. And I listened and I made a few statements. And I wasn't really for or against. I was just sitting there wanting to know what was going on. And then I understood the circumstances that they were under, the combined school. They couldn't say what they wanted to say because it's a HR issue. So I started going to more meetings and started listening to what was going on. And I was at the meeting where they wanted to suspend. And they decided—
that was in June.
That was in June when they wanted to suspend the committee, and there was a big vote, and they sat, anyone that wasn't a parent, they sat them in the back of the room. And that wasn't very nice, to put it bluntly, because in this community, especially in First Nations communities, you're all parents. And I was raised that way as well. Your neighbors down the street, they taught you, they disciplined you, things like that. Your family could have been an uncle or an aunt. They were, in charge of you as well. So I mean, it didn't matter. Everyone should have been out there. And then at that meeting, they wanted to suspend. And what came out of it was they all came together and said, fine, what we'll do is we'll work together on this. We'll have a steering committee put together to find out if they followed proper procedure when letting go of the director.
Because that was a big concern.
That was a big concern.
Kind of what sparked the issue.
And there were, I was on that original committee. We met, and they gave us, I believe it was 30 days. We did it in less than 21. We came up with everything, and we signed off on it, and one of us was going to hand it in. And that's right around the same day, I think, that we got the email that said that the director had accepted the terms and was moving on. So we assumed that, at least I assumed that it wasn't going any further, that was where it was going to end. Mm-hmm. And nothing after that came of it. But then, not even a week later, or maybe a little more, the Combined School Committee was suspended by Chief and Council.
Did that surprise you?
It surprised me very much in the fact that, well, you say you're listening to these 20 or whatever concerned parents, but I'm a concerned parent as well. You didn't ask me. Nowhere at any time did you call a meeting in the public and ask all parents to show up, present your case to say, here's the complaints, here's the problem, this is the solutions that we have. What do you think? Nobody said that. Not one chief said, let's do this, or come onto the public and say, we're going to have this meeting for everybody, and you're going to get to have your 2 cents. I didn't get that. And that's what really pissed me off about the whole process. If they had done that, I think it would have solved a lot of problems. And I think it would have been a whole different argument. It wouldn't have gone the way it went. And I mean, when they did do it, they released a statement on their website, and it said the group that they have is a list of professionals, competent professionals. I thought, well, what you're saying is you're slapping all those parents in the face and all those people that volunteer their time on the Combined School Committee. You're giving them a smack in the face, saying you're not professional and you're not competent by saying that this group is the one that you're bringing forward. What are we? Are we not capable of deciding for ourselves what our children's needs are in the education system? Had these concerned parents actually wrote in their complaints to the Combined School Committee, something would have been done. Mm-hmm. Follow a simple process. I mean, do that, and what could go wrong? They could investigate. They could determine that yes, there's an argument that you have, and we will address it. No, there's no argument. You don't have a leg to stand on. Sorry, this is where we go. And unfortunately, to me, all this happened with the firing of the director. And it was some people that didn't like it, whether it was staff, parents, administrators. If they had followed proper procedure, it probably would have went a whole different way. You know, and that's really what upset me the most about this whole thing. And that's why I'm on this committee. And this committee is comprised, the ad hoc, KCSC ad hoc committee is a group of people who are not Longhouse, who are not, we don't see ourselves as Catholic, we don't see ourselves as Protestant. We're not for one school, we're not for another school. We're just a group of parents that are really angry and concerned about what's going on with what the council did. Reverse what you did, and let's all come to the table. You know, put the combined school committee back in power, then present your case to everyone, and then let the parents decide. It's that simple.
Where do you both see this issue going from here on out now? I mean, I understand there's more meetings that will be held to the general public to come on out and voice their opinions. But what is the solution? And also, as an ad hoc committee, would those 20 or so concerned parents, who are obviously now really on the hot seat, if you will, be able to come to your committee and say, well, this is how I really felt, and this is why I wouldn't, went to the combined school committee in the first place?
I would love to see the 20 concerned parents. I would love to sit and talk with the administrators. And you know, I have heard, like, people will say it's not just about Donna, there were other things that were happening with the board. I want to make it clear, I'm not on either side, on the 20 concerned parents with Donna or the board. I think that when I heard everything that they had to say, I heard mistakes done on both sides. I don't think the school committee it can come through this as the angels.
No, but I think that they're admitting to that already, that we can do something.
We can do better.
Yes.
They can do better, and the other side can do better. And for me, I would go back to the decision. You know, that steering committee was created to look at the process that Donna was hired. Well, let's look at getting a steering committee who can sit down and listen to everybody's concerns. You know, when I walked out of that meeting, I actually felt good, because I thought, well, good, they're not going to suspend them, because in that meeting it was voted. It was voted to by a large majority to not suspend the combined school committee, to not even get to the point of taking a vote. So it was there was a democratic decision made, and the 20 parents didn't get the decision that they wanted, and then they left the meeting and went to the Mohawk Council. That's not democratic. But having said that, I don't know who the 20 parents are. It doesn't matter who they are to me. They're welcome. They're welcome to come, because, and you know, solution, I hope that the Mohawk Council comes forward quickly and says, okay, maybe we were wrong. Well, I agree with him. Rescind the suspension, put the school committee back in place. Let's work together to build from here to fix the problems. You
know, I think that a lot of parents or community members would like to see that happen. Unfortunately, I really don't think it's going to, and I don't want to be the grim reaper of the process, but I mean, just today alone, they released a statement saying that the Board of Trustees is in place, and, you know, and it just reinforces the reason why they suspended, because of a letter that was put out in the Eastern Door, basically threatening and bullying going on, you know, and they're pretty much saying publicly, like, we are not rescinding and we're moving ahead in this process.
Well, with that statement and with that press release that they put out, they basically said, we're not listening to the people. I mean, you can't argue with that. We're not listening to the people, and we're doing what we want. We don't care what you say.
What do you think about these statements being made against the combined school committee, or even some of the parents, this aggressiveness that you guys are being painted with now? How do you feel about that?
When I went to the meetings and I was watching, and there are some people, very emotional people. Whichever side you're on, and you're going to have those kind of people that are going to be loud, that are going to be very opinionated. If you don't have the I guess, the skin, the toughness to stand your ground and make your point in front of those people, then you do have a recourse. You do have written word to get your point across. You don't have to stand in front of these people and make your opinion. You don't have to go around the back and make a deal with someone else. If you have that big of a problem with the process that's going on, then step up and help change it. Step up and help fix it.
And there's something I have to point out is this kind of passionate debate. You know, people say, oh, it's not our way, it's bullying. Well, I think that when people are passionately debating their position, it's healthy. It's, you know, in a lot of ways, it's healthy to say, this is how I feel. I was in meetings and I never heard personal attacks on people. And I think that what isn't being said is that that kind of passion level was on both sides. We had a father who was in the concerned parent camp who ran top speed straight at the combined school committee and landed 2 inches in front of the nose of one of the members, you know. But it's almost like this whole thing is being a kind of smokescreen to say, oh, well, there's bullying going on. But you know what? The root of lateral violence is when people can't talk to each other, that they go behind each other's back and silence the other person. So for me, I would take an honest person who is going to present their argument to me in person, face to face with me, any day, over somebody who will go behind my back and take my voice.
Okay, this is a tough issue. We thank you guys for tuning in, and also to Gerahio and Deidre for coming in studio today. We obviously are going to continue on in this story in the show. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but I'd like to thank you guys for coming on. So good luck with everything, and stay tuned. Facebook, there's so many meetings happening.
KCSC ad hoc.
Yeah,
at hotmail.com.
Right, and they're also going to be at
we're also holding, we will begin consultations with the community next week to gain feedback, surveys, feedback things on amendments to the Constitution that we'd like to see it be stronger.
Okay. So you can get involved if you want to, and of course, that is always welcome. So stay tuned. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more here on Our Town.